Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
I used spreadsheets for 15 years.
Oh my God, did you?
I know. But as my business grew, I grew out of the spreadsheets.
Yes.
And it got harder to sort of keep on top of all my invoicing and quoting and things like that. And Rounded was the accounting software that finally converted me. And it helped simplify my taxes and also just let me take ownership of what goes on in my freelance business. And I love that I've got visibility over my finances, so I can see what's happening with my cash flow and all the other insights that are on the dashboard.
I know the dashboard is so cool. I love a good pie chart, and I love the whole thing. It makes it so much easier to work it out.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan, even if you're an existing customer. So see the show notes for details. Hey, Rach, I know you're a rusted on Rounded customer.
I am. I definitely am. There was a LinkedIn thread about this very thing this week. There's a couple of the Rounded super fans running around. So I'm looking forward to chatting to our guest today, who does happen to be from Rounded, although it's not Oliver Garside, who I know many of our listeners will know or will have met, perhaps at the summit last year. But it's his co-founder, Grant McCall, who typically keeps a lower profile, but we've managed to get him on.
Yeah. And I think today we're getting him into the hot seat to talk a bit about the Rounded story and about what it's like running a business when your customers are freelancers, because I think we get all caught up in our own businesses. And this is a great sort of from the outside looking in perspective.
Absolutely, from the other side.
Yeah.
Well, let me just read out a bio for Grant and then we can get chatting to him.
Yep.
Grant McCall is the founder and head of product at Rounded, an invoicing and accounting app designed specifically for Australian sole traders. After 15 years freelancing as a product designer, developer, and photographer, Grant grew tired of wrangling complicated accounting software made for larger businesses. And sensing an opportunity, he created Rounded, which now supports thousands of freelancers across Australia. Intrigued by both the creative journey and the intricacies of technical execution, this unique blend of skills has allowed Grant to travel the world and work across many industries. Outside of work, he's dad, a bit of a francophile, and loves running in the great outdoors. So welcome,
Awesome.
Grant.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Like I said, I know there's been a lot of collaboration between Rounded and yourselves over the years. So yeah, especially with Ollie. So no, I really appreciate you having me on and being able to collaborate in this podcast with you.
Oh, it's great, because it's great to meet you and chat to another member of Rounded, because you've been such great supporters of us. Do you want to tell us how Rounded came about?
Yeah, sure thing. So, look, I mean, Rounded is really, it's a classic case of, building a solution to your own problems, I guess, and then realizing at some point there are many others who sort of share that problem, and what what you build is sort of potentially the nucleus of a business. Rounded came about mostly just from my background as a freelancer, and just struggling with invoicing and accounting, and not really being able to find the right solution to that problem for my specific needs as an Australian freelancer, and just sort of using my background in sort of creative and tech, working with a lot of startups in the past, sort of drawing on that experience and just building something for myself.
And how did you and Ollie meet and kind of get together and work in the business together?
Yeah, good question. So in that process, over my sort of freelancing career, I made a lot of sort of connections with sort of others in the tech space, a lot of software companies, did a lot of work with a lot of finance software companies, actually. And one of my clients there, Nicholas Beams at the time, he ran a payroll software. So we worked together for probably almost 10 years. So Nick came on board as one of the early investors in Rounded. And Nick was also good friends with Ollie Garside. And he said that I was living in Sydney at the time and I was coming down to Melbourne. And he said, look, I should introduce you to a friend of mine who Ollie just come out of, I think, a reasonably long stint at LinkedIn. And yeah, he was looking for his next chapter. So he introduced us and yeah, we got along really well. He understood the space fairly well. And so, yeah, we went from there, really. We had, like I said, we had that complementary skill set. He was able to really sort of push the business forward in ways that, I was not experienced with. So, yeah, it was a pretty good match.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess you're more about the product and developing it. So accounting software is an interesting thing because there's a couple of really big players, but it was the fact that you felt they were only really for the big companies and they didn't suit freelancers? Was that the gap you saw?
That's most of it, yeah. This was sort of back in about 2014, 2015. So at that point, yeah, there were definitely some incumbent players, Xero, MYOB, but they're very much focused on, small to medium, even large enterprise businesses, right? So as a freelancer, as a sole trader, like opening up the software for the first time is pretty daunting. And you only need 5 to 10% of it. So trying to pick the parts that you need, disregard the rest, and sort of work around that. That was kind of the main driver behind it. It just wasn't anything built specifically for Australian freelancers at the time.
Yeah, and we're seeing more businesses that are built just for that freelance market, more sort of software as a service type thing, but they're still not that common. So talk to us about your experiences with Rounded customers since you guys launched.
Right. Now, look, Rounded customers, we've got great customers. We really do. Like I think we mentioned earlier, there's a couple of really great freelance communities, on Facebook and around, and we get so much great support from there. But dealing with sort of freelancers, as customers, it's interesting because they're in this not a strange spot, but they're not B2B. They're not businesses. They're not B2B. They're not B2C. They're somewhere in between. So it's an interesting spot. And so our customers, they really quite diverse bunch as well. So we've got everyone from the creative industries to trades industries, law, medicine. It's really quite diverse. And so we hear a lot from those customers, and we've got very smart, very intelligent customers that really help us drive the business forward, drive the product forward. And working with those customers, because we are dealing with the business owner. There's no one else in that business, right? So you get a really good sense of that person's business, of that person's of their day-to-day challenges. So yeah, like working with freelancers, it's unique, it's different, it's interesting, it has its challenges, but they are it's a really good demographic to deal with.
One of the things about, I guess, freelancers that make them a bit unique, and I've seen this with some of the stories I've written for trade mags, is that they often have really good skills in whatever their USP is, whether it's writing, whether it's photography or graphic design or whatever. But the business side is really hard for them. And not many people learn that business side.
Yeah, that's right. It's right because when you're freelancing, you can go if we're talking about business side, in terms of say business development, finding new customers, or the administration side of things, handling taxes, all the that kind of thing. It's something that you can always sort of defer to an extent, right? You can defer that, right? So like often, when people start freelancing, they start like almost their first client a lot of time. It falls into their lap via some way or another, through a contact or do this or whatnot. And so there's not usually a great learning experience in actually starting, like building that business from scratch. Sometimes that comes just totally natural, which is a fantastic thing. And so that's something that freelancers really need to work on, really need to build as they want to go from one client to 2 clients to 3 clients, because sometimes client number 3 or 4 doesn't come as easily as as the first one. So that's definitely something that, building the business in that way is difficult and it's a challenge. But, also, running the business side of your freelancing business in terms of, accounting, all the admin that goes with it. When I talk about deferring, that's that's the number one culprit, right? It's so common.
So they've already got a business and they've got it all up and they're just sending Excel invoices or something. And then somewhere around tax time, they start to get in a bit of pickle. Is that when Rounded comes in? I mean, ideally, you'd have something like your system right from the start, but people probably don't, do they?
No, they don't. I mean, look, in an ideal world, yeah, you're right that you have something like this in place from day one. But a lot of the time, we have a lot of customers that come to us, and they're so good at what they do, but they like ignore this stuff until they can't ignore it anymore. And they, sometimes they come to us. They've got 2-3 years of data. I need to get in. I need to start, sorting it all out. Because yeah, look, ideally, it's something you have in place from day one. But a lot of the time it is something that it comes up and they deal with it only when they need to. But the good thing is once they do come on board, subsequent financial years or quarters for activity statements are a lot easier.
I think I've been with you pretty much from the start, I think. And I remember going in the first interface, like looking at it, because basically dealing with all the stuff used to make my eyes glaze over. It was something I did under duress. But I went in, I remember the first interface, it was super colorful. And you guys had this gamification thing from the start, where you could set your goals and you could see the things change on the graphs and all of that. And I love that. So I'm just wondering, like, you're a freelancer starting a business for freelancers, or you had that mindset. What did you think about when you were, doing that business plan? Were you thinking we really have to build this stuff in because I know what is going to work for that cohort of people?
Initially, I'm trying to think back to it now. This was
I know it's like 8 years or something, isn't it?
Closer to 10 for me.
Yeah, wow.
It's a long time, actually. So there are a couple of key things really when I thought about solving this problem for myself and then taking it to the next step and potentially making a business out of it. Yeah, so my background is all on the creative freelancer side, right? So that's the kind of demographic that I was thinking about when I started this. Is what are the tools that I need? Because my background's a little bit diverse. I've done a lot of work in photography, graphic design, interface, like software design, code, even copywriting, in filmmaking, all the full gamut of freelancing, but pretty much all in that sort of tech and creative space. So I'm thinking, what are the particular things that I would like to see in an accounting package that would, one, be attractive to that demographic, but two, really solve their problems. Yeah. So when you say that, gamification and the interface, all the colors, all that kind of thing, that was really just I wanted to take a big step away from what it already existed, because everything that existed was like, if it's even possible, like was just even uglier than a spreadsheet a lot of the time, right? So I really wanted to just move away from that because it's just unnecessary. It's totally unnecessary to do that. And so you can make data beautiful. You can do this. And so that was one thing that I need to remove, just that aversion that people have to that accounting software. And the best way to do that is by just making a lovely interface, lots of colors, nice and bright, make it friendly. And it's like you mentioned the goals, try and actually get people emotionally invested inside their accounting tool. So that was one thing. And the second thing was, there were quite a few things, but the other main aspect of this, and that I was really thinking about when I built this, was it had to be region specific. It had to be for Australia, because I tried plenty of other apps, and some of them were for smaller businesses, but they were usually international, so they're mostly North American, and so they didn't have there was no notion of sort of GST or activity statements or the Australian financial year. It was all very generic, right? So you could go in there and there were some basics and you understood those basics, but once it actually came to completing an activity statement for quarterly activity statement, or in Australia, or our financial year, it it just fell short very quickly, and I was back to spreadsheets basically. So that was the second thing. Like I wanted to be really quite focused on that sort of creative industry initially, and it had to be for Australia.
Yeah, that's
It's
interesting.
interesting because I'm a freelancer who has lots of subscriptions, and some are built specifically for freelancers and some I sort of use, but I know they're not specifically for solopreneurs. They're for bigger outfits, and you sort of use what you can and make it work. And the difference between freelancer software like yours and bigger, the other types of subscriptions I have is how agile you can be. Like I, have definitely been annoying and suggested things to you guys over and over. And I know probably a lot of freelancers do that. So what's the process that you have for assessing your customers' ideas and deciding whether to build that into the functionality?
Right. It's a good question. I hope we've actually addressed some of those.
Yeah, you're good at it. I think you have a reputation for listening to that.
We always think we can be better. We'd always like to do things faster. That's essentially everything. Why isn't this being done? Well, we're a pretty small team on the development side, so we, as its pros and cons, we can be quite agile, but sometimes we wish we get some things done a little faster. But it's so important to listen to your customers, right? And it's such a cliche, but it still holds true in that we do, we've got our live chat and we have our feedback forum, our product, where our customers can go inside the app, go to our feedback board, request features, and all of our customers can interact with that, leave their own feedback, upvote particular features, what they would like to see. So that really, that is our compass for the most part. We do look at that. I look at that almost daily.
Wow.
Yeah, I get notifications on there when someone leaves, say, a comment on a particular feature. So someone might have requested something 6 months ago, but a new customer who signed up last week may come along and go, "This is great. I'd like this too, but my particular experience would like to see it implemented perhaps in this way." And so that starts becoming quite interesting. But when we choose, it's not complicated. Really, when we choose what we're going to build, I look at that list, and I don't think you can ever go wrong by building the number one features that your customers ask for. So that's, implementing that tool was really key for us. So I don't think you can ever go wrong by, implementing the number one feature that your customers request. And that's all public. That's all very visible. But we also do need to be careful, like with some of these things and the way in which we implement them. Sometimes, they can lead you down paths that can be a little problematic later on. So you can have features that sound great on the surface, but then you realize this is really only specific to a very small number of customers, and it would be excellent for those customers, I'm sure. But can we afford to invest the a week of exploring the feature, 2 to 3 weeks of design, 4 weeks of development, another week of testing? Is that going, we do run a business at the end of the day, so are we going to get, ROI on that? Are enough of our customers going to see value out of that? So there is always that process that we go through, and also from a technical consideration too, some things that some customers request, how is that actually going to affect our code base in the long run, right? How does that affect our tech debt? How are we going to manage that going forward? How do we maintain, that particular feature in 2 years, 3 years? What are the requirements to keep that particular feature running? So these are all the things that we think about.
You would even have challenges because, dealing with finances and taxes, particularly in superannuation now, that the government can make changes.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have to respond to that and as well.
Yeah, they're kind of like my least favorite customer. But, because they make feature requests that we have to implement no matter what.
Damn them. It's interesting seeing the other side though, and how you go through that process, because when you're the freelancer requesting it, you're just thinking, why can't we have that feature? But it's such a bigger kind of thing, isn't it? A bigger assessment.
No, yeah, it is. And look, there's a lot of things happening, potential changes to the tax brackets. I think quite gone all the way through Parliament yet, but that means, and we have to then start, we need to plan for that, because that'll, obviously in the new year, in the new financial year rather. So we'll need to plan for that, update all of our tax calculations, and and that's just something that is just mandated for us. So we have no choice but to make that work. And also things like open banking that is becoming more common. It's still a little bit of a, without going into too much technical detail, there is it's something that's become more common and becoming more expected from customers, being able to access your banking data within other applications in a secure manner. And so that's something that's also not entirely mandated, but going to become expected from our customers. So we will have no choice but to implement those things, and things like e-invoicing. And so all of these things happen that come from all different angles, from different government departments. We have no choice but to implement. And sometimes that can mean we spend 3 months doing that and not focusing on some of our customer features, which is so it can be, it's challenging. You've got to plan that. You've got to put it in your product roadmap. When are we going to implement the things that we have to? When are we going to implement the things that our customers really want? And weighing all that up, as a business as well.
Interesting.
It's interesting. I was interested because we talked a little bit offline, because you deal with freelancers a lot, and I think you'd have some really good insights. Because we talked a bit offline about multi-disciplinary freelancers that you thought was interesting, which might mean a writer who has design skills or a designer who codes. What advantages do you see with these freelancers over others that might just do one thing?
Yeah, okay, look, it's a great question. It's something that I've spoken about this a few times, wrote a couple of blog posts here and there about this, and I kind of come at this from, I guess, experience, right? My experience is very much being multidisciplinary, or a generalist, as the common term, even though I'm not sure I like that term, the term generalist. My experience is very much being involved in many different disciplines. So I started freelancing pretty much in high school. And so initially, I was very much interested in the old sort of Flash-based, web animations and all that kind of stuff, which led me
Remember
to
Flash?
yeah, yeah, I miss it actually. I miss
Those
it.
sites,
Yeah.
but it really just slowed everything right down, didn't it?
Oh, it did. But it's funny, and we go a little off topic here, but people had so much more patience back then. Somebody,
Yeah,
you'd sit there,
that's true.
you'd wait 2 minutes for someone's like introduction animation to load on their website, and that
Yeah,
was acceptable.
yeah,
But now, it's like
Now.
anything less than a second is just like not a chance. But
yeah.
no, I think the web was a more forgiving and creative place back in those days.
Yes.
But I digress. So that's I got started all the way back then, and in that era of the web, and which sort of led me to have a lot of different interests in all of that creative space. So I wasn't just interested in the creative journey, but also very interested in the technical implementation of a lot of these different things. And sort of having that curiosity and interest in sort of the technical, creative, and the business side of how you can actually make money out of these skills. So it really gave me a diverse skill set early on. And so what then happened sort of naturally is that having that diverse skill set, when I started growing my freelance business out of high school, and then moved down to Melbourne in the city and started meeting different people, I would start as just saying, I'm a website designer. That was kind of what I was best at the time. But also when it came to designing a website, there are a lot of components of a website, right? So you need copy written for that. At the time, you need if there was photos to be shot, there were videos to be made. Someone had to write the code. Someone had to think about the analytics of all of that kind of thing. And so, sort of in my experience over the years of learning all of that, I went to a client would come to me and say, well, we need you to build a website. And I say, well, we're just waiting on the copy to be written. I'm like, well, I'll write it for you. That's no problem. And like, oh, well, we also need the photos to be done. I'm like, I'll shoot the photos. It's no issue. And so that was kind of one of the benefits, for me. And what that led to really was I very rarely, or pretty much never, faced scarcity of work. In that, so when my core competency was sort of software design, eventually became software design as opposed to website design. But because I was quite handy, writing code and behind a camera, if there was a little, something dried up in software design, then I could always find work in, shooting photos, did a lot of corporate stuff, even, editorial stuff, portraits, a lot of video, even working like film compositing and visual effects. And so it really opened up a lot of opportunities and meant that there was always work flowing in one way or another. So that's, in my experience, that was kind of one of the major benefits of having that diverse skill set, is that I never really faced scarcity of work. But there are a lot of other benefits. There are a lot of benefits to being multidisciplinary in that way. And I feel like one of the major benefits, really, especially when you start working in a team, is your ability to communicate with others on a project, right? So that becomes really, really valuable. So if we're working in a larger project where it's just not feasible for one person to do everything, so that if you're working in that, say, as a project manager, if you have skills across software design, code, or copyright, like interface copywriting or whatnot, you're more than comfortable talking to the people who are, maybe not specialists in that area, but the ones doing that work, right? So you can talk to them in their language. And the real benefit of that is being able to bridge gaps between everyone working inside a project. So yeah, if we're working in again, to use a website, a bigger website as an example, then I'm quite comfortable talking to the copywriters, photographers, the graphic designers, and being able to talk to them in their language. So the communication is one of the real major benefits to that, really.
I definitely see that in my own work because I've built websites like Rachel's List. So I was on a call the other day for a big website project. I'm doing the copy, but they had software developers on there. They had the web designer and they had the business manager. And I could see the web designer was really shocked that I was talking to him about how the database might marry into the WordPress. And like, he couldn't believe that he was talking to me about that. He was thinking, oh, she's the copywriter. But I thought, well, I've done. Yeah, so it does come into play. And I reckon these can sometimes be called adjacent skills, like, and for copywriters that, the sky's the limit, are you a copywriter that picks up SEO or, so how can you decide what adjacent skills you need and what you need to learn?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good term, adjacent skills, because it also implies that you have a core competency, right? Which I think is key. It is key. So, for example, myself, my core competency, I would say, is software design, software architecture, right? But as you're saying as well, in your experience in sitting in conversations as a copywriter by trade, but having a solid understanding and skills in the technical implementation of the website, it's extremely important. So the way I like to think of it is a pyramid, really. And so the peak, the apex of the pyramid is what your core competency is, whether if it's copywriting, or it's photography or 3D modeling or whatever that may be. And then I start to think of that and say, well, how do you build out the sides of that pyramid, right? And you just look left and right, and you usually don't have to look too far to identify what those things are. So again, like inside copywriting, technical SEO is hugely beneficial, right? So that might sit on on one side, but on the left-hand side, that may be the data analytics, right? So being able to create all the set up all the dashboards, everything that you want inside Google Analytics or any other analytics program, and being able to crunch that data, take it out into any other external application, and write formulas in a spreadsheet and get all, being able to do that, it starts to make you a very, very powerful and valuable member of any team if you're able to take your core competency and say, well, these are the 2 or 3, 4 other things that I can do quite well, right? And the thing is about this is a lot of people get really hung up on becoming a specialist, an absolute expert in one thing. But in my experience, that's rarely needed. It is needed, definitely, in some scenarios, but being just competent and in some of these things is enough a lot of the time, especially if it's not your core competency, right? Like if you're great, like if you're a great copywriter, but you're also very comfortable inside data analytics or SEO, then you don't need to be the best at SEO. You don't need to be the best at analytics to deliver value to your client, right? And a lot of the time, it's like, I think there's that, Malcolm Gladwell in the 10,000 hours is always sort of reference, right? It takes 10,000 hours to mastery, but I believe it probably takes 300 or 400 hours to be able to generate revenue, right?
Yeah.
You don't need like sometimes, and again, I'm not, not discounting the people who've put in that time and become absolute experts. It's absolutely necessary in some scenarios, but to simply have as an extra string on your bow to generate additional revenue and more value for your client, you don't need to go that all the way with those sort of adjacent skills.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so you think that being a multidisciplinary freelancer is really important going forward? It sort of future-proofs your business, perhaps?
I 100% believe so. We're in interesting times at the moment. It's interesting and challenging in a number of ways. And if you think about what's happening with AI and especially content generation, but also what's happening economically. Unfortunately, I think we're going through a bit of a period where teams are getting smaller, budgets are decreasing, and companies are always looking, how do we get more for less? And so what's going to happen there is, and that's also going to apply to how they augment their team, right? So if I can, and this is true for me inside Rounded as well, if I can bring someone, it's like when we hire a developer, I'm really only interested in full stack developers that are comfortable on the front end and the back end. But you're going to see this, across the board, in that people are going to find a lot more value in freelancers that can come on board and do the work of 2 or 3 people, as opposed to hiring 2 or 3 different people. And that's a little unfortunate in some ways, but that's just also going to be the reality of that. And especially now that teams are being augmented by AI as well. That's AI is only going to improve. It's going to get better and better and better. And those who embrace it and use it, and especially if you're someone who is multidisciplined, and you can use AI to connect all of those dots, it's going to make you a very, very powerful member of someone's team, whether that's a freelancer or internal team as well.
Amazing. Well, obviously, running a business for freelancers, you've got to stay ahead of freelancer trends and developments. So is that something you guys are always thinking about, and how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to, right? Our customers are freelancers. So I guess everything kind of what I've been speaking about forms part of that as well. And we are seeing trends go in that way, where inside our software we can see numbers of our customers that are using multiple brands for different different offerings is increasing. So that's definitely a component. But we keep our ear fairly close to the ground in in communities. Like my business partner Ollie definitely does that a lot. Myself, I spend more time around in sort of Discord communities and discourse communities for various things. And you start to notice what people are talking about, what tools they think are important to learn, what their clients are expecting. So it's staying on top of what's happening inside our client businesses is it's really key for us to make sure we continue to offer the tools that are going to help not just them run their businesses but grow their businesses as well. So it's extremely important.
So what do you see as the big trends for freelancers in the next 5 years?
I think the trends for freelancers, it may be a little surprising, in that I think communities are actually going to, become more and more and more important, for freelancers, and we're seeing communities grow a lot. There's a few Discord forums and whatnot that I'm in, and the memberships and numbers are like, these are international as well, some, but the numbers there are just like, they're exploding. And I think like after we've come out of COVID as well, and so like, finding connection within that, within those communities is really, really important. So I think, communities is one thing, but again, to mentioning it, like the advancements in technology, specifically in content generation, I don't know if anyone is really knows exactly what's going to happen at this point. We're seeing things happen, but whether or not, you've got opinions on this run the full gamut, right? So,
Yeah.
they really, really do. You've got the full, doomsdayers, and that they tend to pop up
Yes.
quite a
Yeah.
lot. I'm not really in that camp. I think it's going to be disruptive and it's going to have an impact, but it's not going to be full doom and gloom, and everyone's going to be out of work and that kind of thing. But these are powerful tools that will be used, and I think there will still, if used in the right way, people and businesses and especially businesses customers are always going to trend and be more attracted to work that is largely human, as opposed to entirely AI generated and whatnot. So the technology side is really fascinating at this point, and it's so hard to predict exactly what's going to happen, because I just think that we're still pretty early on in that piece. But I do think the community also is going to play a very large part of it.
Well, obviously, like from your, your early days as a freelancer and up until now, you're very deep in tech, possibly a very much an early adopter. So what are your favorite, tech tips or digital tools that you'd really be lost without?
Like I am consider myself extremely technical, but I'm quite simple when it comes to the tools that I can't live without. The number one thing is just the text editor. Everything is
All
just
right.
like it's very low tech. It's actually very, very low tech. Everything, like I just jot everything down inside a text editor. But if we're going to, I guess, tools and tips and whatnot, the one thing that I see, and it might be kind of random, but one thing I see a lot when I just see people using computers and whatnot, and using their tools, is keyboard shortcuts. It fascinates me, just in terms of value and time saved. I couldn't, like, if you took the keyboard shortcuts away from me, the computer becomes useless. I barely touch my mouse, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You should do a blog post about that. I'm going to look out for that.
Yeah, keyboard
you
shortcuts.
Because
you can save so much time by
Yeah.
learning keyboard shortcuts, and that
Yeah.
may be a bit of an odd answer.
I love it.
I love it too. That's what I need.
Everyone spends so much time on their computer, and I see people using things in very inefficient ways, and you can save 10-15 minutes a day by learning the right shortcuts. The other thing too, though, is simplification of everything that you use. Like I think you said, Rachel, you have who knows how many subscriptions. Like I think it's going to become, again, looking forward, it's going to become extremely important to simplify those things. It's so easy, and it's kind of counterintuitive. So a lot of time people are thinking, what can I add to do this thing? What can I add to do that thing? But not so much, what can I take away? Right? Is this cog?
Yeah.
Does it even do much? Like,
Yeah.
do I actually need it?
Yeah.
And so, like the majority of my workday happens in, 2 or 3 applications. And that's it. And I try to keep it as, I'm a minimalist in that way, right? So, and I think there's a lot of value in that, not so much in adding more tools, but just making sure you've got 2 or 3 really high value, really high value tools, and being very skeptical of adding more, because a lot of the time they hinder more than progress.
Yeah. It's funny the little things that you try that just become, kind of embedded into everything you do. Like for me this year, it's been Toby, which is like a Chrome app that we learnt from Beck Derrington from Source Bottle when she came on the
Okay.
podcast. And it's like a browser thing. So you open a browser window and you can create collections of all the bookmarks you need, like for personal stuff, for things you're working on, courses you want to do. You just drag them because it looks
Right.
at all your bookmarks down the side,
Right.
and then you can just drag them into the right collections. I cannot tell you how much time that has saved me and how efficient it's made me. And the other one I love is Text Expander, which, you're getting
Right.
back to the
Yeah.
keyboard shortcuts.
Mhm.
That one is a really good one for things you have to write over and over all the time, or add into social media blurbs or whatever, and you can just do it with a little hashtag thing.
I haven't heard of that one. Cool.
So you create all the stock standard things, whether it's in emails or for social media,
Hashtags, that sort of stuff.
hashtags, like say you don't want to type out 30 hashtags, so you just create one for, say, job post, and then it goes bloop, and it just pops the
Right.
30 hashtags into your thing. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
super useful. Yeah, those two are my
Yeah.
favorite at the moment.
Yeah. And it's kind of a obligatory mention is a password manager.
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah,
I have to mention it. I feel like it's an obligation to
yeah.
society to mention a password
Yeah.
manager every single time, just for obvious reasons. We see far too many people reusing the same passwords across multiple services, and it is, in terms of life-changing tools, a password manager is
I think
pretty
it's a
high
great
on that
idea.
list.
And I think particularly when you're working in financial software, like there's so many scams and hacks and everything. There's a lot to worry about there in that space.
Yeah, yes. I mean, security is obviously, we're a financial application, so security for us it's priority number one, number two, number three. So, our password, all of that stuff that you'd expect, it's like everything is just totally managed inside a password manager. It's extremely important. Exactly what's happening inside the financial industry at the moment. You can't go a day without reading about someone who's been scammed in some way or another, or a data breach. Data breaches are becoming very problematic. The amount of leaked emails and passwords that are floating about. Yeah, password manager solves that. So if you don't have one, get one.
Yeah. Right.
You must have really not expected to be so deep in finance, like finance information and all the stuff that you do around finances. It sounded like you came from a very creative side, and now it's all about the money.
Yeah, it's it's for better or worse.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, look, it is. I never set out to build accounting software.
Yeah.
That was, but now I wouldn't say I'm a qualified accountant, but
you've learned
a lot.
I've read far too much of the ATO's website and business than anyone really should.
Yeah.
So but look, I just set out to solve a problem, and that's where I ended up. And it was also not just about building software and making accounting software or that, but I've pretty much only ever been a freelancer. So the opportunity to build something that is going to be valuable for that community was also extremely important. It just happened to be accounting software. So it's that was important too. But yeah, you're right, I spend a lot of time thinking about numbers. So
yeah. Interesting.
Wow.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
we're so glad you did build it.
Yes. So glad.
Because it makes my life 10 times easier, that's for sure.
Same.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I actually don't get to speak to customers all that. I used to a lot in the early days, but Ollie's very much on that side now. But I don't get to speak to customers face to face like this very often. So no, it's very pleasing to hear, and I'm so glad that what we do, what we build is making life easier for the freelance community yourself. So
that's great.
it's really pleasing to hear that.
Absolutely.
Wow. So this has been so brilliant, Grant. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Tell listeners where they can find out a little bit more about you or connect with you.
So coming back to the low key kind of thing.
Yes.
So no, I do.
Don't connect with me.
No, I look. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't post a lot there, but I have recently made an effort to start writing some things on my website. I'm probably slacked off there again already. I do have a website, grantmccall.com. There's the occasional blog post there, but you can definitely hit me up on LinkedIn if any questions at all. I'll definitely respond, but I'm not a prolific poster by any means. So
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate it.
Well, we always have links to Rounded in our
We
show
do,
notes.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yes.
So,
But we so appreciate you coming on. It's just been a fascinating chat.
no, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a really good chat. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you both. Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone who's listening, please don't forget to leave a rating and a review on the platform where you find your podcasts, and we'll pop all the details in the show notes.
For sure. And see everyone again next week.
We will. Thanks everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.